Are you an emotional person?
I don't think so, yeah.
What's your sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Okay.
I'm a Scorpio, a Leo rising, and a Virgo moon. A lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings in there. My name is Fatimah Asghar. I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've been living in Chicago, and I recently just moved to LA. Chicago was the first place that I intentionally was like, I am making this home out of, and I wasn't there because of school, and I wasn't there because of like forced circumstance. I was there because I was like, I am choosing to make this a home. And there's something about like your chosen home that really changes something, you know, when you're like, I'm actively doing this. It was where I kind of came into my own voice, my own aesthetic, and I credit that all really to Chicago because it's such a creatively rich place, and I would not be the artist I am had I not spent a lot of time there. Yeah. I've always loved storytelling. I've always loved reading and like getting lost in these worlds that I can kind of be in. And so one of my cousins like jokes, and she was like, yeah, you just always were in your own world. Like we could never like bring you back to earth. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I feel super lucky because I kind of feel like when I was like, I'm gonna be a writer, there was not really the pushback. It was like, okay, cool, like figure it out, make it work, you know, like do it and then kind of like see how it goes, you know. And I think that was a really great place that, in terms of all the people who supported me to be where I am. I can't ever remember a time talking about sexuality or sex with with an older generation of South Asian people. Like it just doesn't happen, right? But so there's kind of a way when that happens, there's a lot of silence, right? There's a lot of things that you don't know about, and you don't know about your like parents or your aunts or your uncle's generation, right? Like you don't know what they went through. You don't know if they went through the same things that you did. What does silence look like in South Asian communities when we don't talk about sex and sexuality? And then when that is breached, like what's all the kind of surrounding baggage and fear and emotions that you have around it? When you're trying to be your full self, right? And the feeling of like, am I letting someone down? Am I gonna disappoint them? Is like the way, is my sexuality like not okay with them?
Shouldn't we be talking about that? Like, where does that back in the feminist movement 1,000 years, Mom?
I'm not even gonna begin to give you a lecture about what you don't know about feminism.
In Brown Girls, I was super interested in looking at women of color and all their relationships, right? So you have the main characters of Layla and Patricia, they're best friends. And I think that there's this way that, especially like among kind of our generation, it's like, oh, I know everything. Like I know what feminism means. I know what like anti-racist work looks like. I know what all this stuff is. To have someone older just be like, you don't know anything. Like, what do you actually know? And like kind of humble you in that way. She's out here like kicking a dude out of her bed after she sleeps with him. Whereas like her mom is like learning what it means to be alone for the first time, right? And like those are two very different moments in people's lives, and they're very different kinds of feminism.
Auntie, I'm at work and I must go. And also, you know how the Goras are. They'll hear me say Muslim things and then they'll say a million words.
Brownness is so many things, right? Like brownness it can be indigenous, it can be Latinx, it can be Desi, it can be, you know, like it can be black, it can be anything, right? And it's kind of this way, I was looking at it as a way of like building active solidarity, to be like, this is a word that is like an invitation for solidarity, and that's kind of where I was coming from. And so I think that they're really healthy conversations to be having, right? It's like, how do you have solidarity without appropriation and without co-option, right? Like how do you build solidarity where everybody can show up for each other and it doesn't feel like that in that showing up we're erasing each other or we're taking too much from each other. I really hope that we can stop having to explain ourselves all the time. You know, I hope that we can have a range of different art where you're like, you know, I don't like that, and that's okay. And it's not all your stakes are not all attached to that one thing because it's the only representation of you. It's just like, whatever, that's fine, I don't like that. And it doesn't have to only be like a story that you feel protective over because it's about your race. There's no way that you can make a piece of art that's representative of everyone, nor should you be, because that limits what the specificity of the story you're telling, and it kind of gives us this false sense of universality that doesn't exist, right? When we tell stories, we're telling stories about specific people, and we can always use the specific to get to the universal, but we can't kind of be in this area where we're like putting everything on every single piece of art that's made. So the artist who made it, her name is Shama Golden. Shama read my whole book. When I got the email with the cover, it was like such a detailed email of like, this is why this flower is here. This is what this thing represents. This represents like both like masculinity and femininity, which you write about in the book. I never really felt that way of like putting trust into someone I had never met, didn't know. But once I saw that piece and I saw like all the thought and care that went into it, I was just like, this is it. This is amazing. I never liked my nose growing up, and now I really like it because I just really love nose piercings, as you can tell. And so I feel like I've kind of come into like liking parts of my body that I didn't used to like before. Me and my director, Sam Bailey, we often joke about how we feed off of each other because we're super like spontaneous. Like I think we went and saw Black Panther, and then afterwards, I think she was just like, thinking about getting nose ring or something, and I was like, cool, let's go get nose rings. Like, let's go right now. And we went and got nose rings like right then. And so it's kind of this way in which I feel like I'm very spontaneous in that way, and I kind of am like, this is the thing that we are doing, great, we're all doing it now, and we're all on board for it. I often use the emoji with the tear eyes crying, because I feel like it's such a good emoji. Like, you can use it when you're sad, but you also use it when something really amazing happens and you start to cry. And I think I'm kind of an emotional person in general. Like, I have like this thing and I feel this way and I have a lot of feelings. And so I think that's like the emoji that describes me best. I think about what we were talking about in terms of actively building solidarity and building moments of connection and building moments of support. And so to me, LiveTinted is that, right? Is like building intentional support and solidarity among people of color and among marginalized groups, and being like, we got each other, and like we look out for each other and we lift each other and we support each other.